happy to have a Michelle joining us
I'm so happy to
today.
be here too.
I've been watching her videos and you post and reels on Instagram. I'm so inspired by her creativity and her content. And there are so many I learned from her too. So I'm so happy she can join me today and share a little more about herself. Yeah,
I'm so happy to be here and also to meet you, and I'm very excited.
thank you. So would you tell us a little bit? So I want to share a little bit about me first. Social media, it's new to me, and before COVID, no technology. So that's another thing I'm so impressed with Michelle. So Michelle, can you share a little bit? How long have you been on on social media and how you get into from a traditional, when we learn music, it's very traditional. How you move on to the all this multimedia world.
I think part of it helps that I'm of the generation where like all the social media stuff started to exist. So it's been built into my lifestyle. I think it would be very intimidating for like the more mature generation to come in here because like it's like another world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's because social media has been in my life, it made it a bit of an easier transition to understand how like Instagram works or how TikTok and things like that work. But I would say, if we were to have like a very concrete date, so to speak, I started on YouTube in 2014 with my YouTube channel, The Open Score. And then I had like my own personal Instagram and I was interested in like sharing my progress and things like that on Instagram. But the community for the classical music realm had not been established at all. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just there as like my own personal account. And then as things started rolling a little bit more, then I went on to Instagram and explored TikTok. But I would say I've been on social media as the open score-ish for since 2014 on YouTube.
How how old were you? Were you in elementary school?
um, it was 2014. I think I had just finished. If I started the open score, I had just finished my undergrad.
Really?
Yeah, I'd finished my undergrad at that point.
Okay. Wow. But do you at that time do you have friends they all also explore social media or you were the one of the few?
I mean, you know how in Instagram right now everyone's sharing their practice progress.
Uh-huh,
You know, you
uh-huh.
have like music teachers who are also using it. You have
Yes.
those studying conservatoire also using it. Like that didn't exist in my time.
I
And
can
I
imagine.
wanted something like that so badly. So being like the only
Why?
person in my entire university locked in my own practice room, I was like, I don't know if anyone else is doing this, but I'm pretty sure they're not. But it's at that time it's weird to like post your practice progress because it's not as open as it is now.
It
So
is.
I wanted what was is happening now back in my time. So yeah, it was really difficult. It did feel a bit lonely. So I'm so happy that now the new generation coming in has all these
Mhm.
resources. Like they are very, very blessed and very lucky.
That was very courageous to share. No, to being transparent, to share what you have and then you were learning your practice. To me, that
Mhm.
takes a little courage to do that in front of videos, a camera, you know.
I think so, especially for classical musicians when we're
Exactly.
wanting to pit ourselves up against and are demanded this certain silly idea of perfection. And
Mhm.
so part of the reason why one of the biggest things for myself and also for my audience and for I guess the content that I create is transparency and honesty and to show that human side of being an artist or being a musician because you know classical musicians spend enough time comparing themselves to recordings of the greats of the golden age where everything was the recordings they've been edited and it's just I'm sure those performers have had their bad days too. We're all human.
Definitely.
So like let's just humanize things and enjoy the process.
I love it. Be true to ourselves. And I think that's
Yes.
part of our journey. It's so important to have
Hmm.
that part. It is.
Absolutely, especially if you're a musician and you're an artist, like you have to be true to yourself and your art and your growth is your progress. So don't be dishonest about that because you're just really being dishonest with you and your own art.
That's the part I say to my student all the time. When you don't solve the problem, don't tell me that passage is going to become perfect automatically. Gotta be true
Yes.
to ourselves.
Yeah, you have to be
Yeah.
very true to yourself and like realistic, which is scary. Like,
Oh, it
I'm not
is.
saying this is easy, it's scary.
Oh, I hear you. But how did you have that willingness or that desire willing to share with the world when you first get on Instagram? It takes a lot of courage at the same time too.
I don't know if it's courage or more like just being naive and just like wanting to
We all
share
been
things.
there.
When you're younger, you don't know about the things you could be scared of.
True.
So you're just like, I'll just do this. And I think it's just like, we're lucky that the classical music community on social media is so welcoming and so kind. I think though the biggest thing that if we were to say that I'm being brave or courageous or any of that sort is my personal desire to help others not go through what I went through trumps that needing that courage or bravery or stuff. To like really just simplify and summarize everything, I felt very like lonely and unsupported in my studies in music. Going from things like performance anxiety to playing related injuries to not really matching with teachers and doing the study what I felt to be very lonely, and knowing that there's all these resources and there's all this help out there, but there's like a, what's the word I'm looking for, there's like a gatekeeper to that information. I was like, this is silly. It shouldn't be like this. And I wouldn't want anyone who is in my position to go through what I had to. And because I have this knowledge and got this experience, the least I can do for someone else is to share my story. And hopefully it helps them too. So I would say that trumps over like the ideas of courage and whatnot.
You're gonna make me cry. That's
Oh.
actually one of the reasons I decided to get on social media, because we all have so much. And then I went through many years. I'm older than you, so all many years. Yes, it has been so lonely in this journey, and how much I worked, how many struggles I have, how many years. I finally came out of that, and I don't want people to go through that. And there are so many. In fact, I just an hour ago, I spoke to a lady, and she says, "Oh, I can't sing. I'm not musical." Actually, it's somewhere there. But I love singing. I just say, if you love singing, that's in there. Let's find it. And there are
Absolutely.
so many people that love music, but they don't know they have that access through their body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the injury and everything started coming in, because our stress and our work and whatever, it's just kind of create all the walls.
Yes, yes. And then you're trying to bust through these walls and you wonder why, like you're injured, like you're trying to hit a wall, you know?
We work too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
That's why when I saw your post, you're talking about the program from the Bulletproof Musician from Dr. Noah Kageyama. Did I
Yes,
say his name
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I always have a little hard time with his name. It's so inspiring with his research and what he shared. And then when I saw that, I said, "Yeah, I want to talk to Michelle. She is
Oh,
so inspiring to see
thank you.
a a, a young generation to have that desire and willing to share." Is that your cat?
Yeah, she's wanting some attention. She's a little off screen right now. Here. We'll interrupt
Oh,
this broadcast for a little bit. Here's my cat.
beautiful. I have another student. His
Yeah?
cat would sit next to a piano and watch him play. And when he
Oh,
played
that's
a
so
wrong note,
sweet.
the cat would just staring at him.
It's like a second teacher.
Oh yeah. And then I did the advent calendar in my studio every in
Mhm.
December. I unlock one video of my student performance each day.
That's so creative. I love that.
Oh, thank you. And his video in the middle, the cat meow.
I'm sure that was like the best highlight of the videos out of
He
all
wants
of
to
them.
be part of it, and his parents don't have just to hold and don't make noise.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
good. It sounds like you
Oh.
have a lot of good bonding within your studio, or that you try to encourage that.
Yeah, because I feel like, yes, instead of just being a traditional piano teacher and I just see a student one-on-one, the music should be part of the life. And one of the things, my personal struggle is the tension. When we want to work harder, we have more tension. I always tell them, look at a little baby when they sleep, they're holding their feast. And that's the tension we build in. We born with that. And
Hmm.
in order to find a connection, to find, oh, that's what I feel, we have to let go instead of control more.
Hmm.
So I started to
Absolutely.
feel, when we perform, instead of I'm holding that tension, I want to be perfect. It's a communication.
Yes.
And all the audience, they look at you, they love you. It's
Yeah.
such a friendly environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tension gets in the way of a lot of things, and
Oh,
you wonder how we get
definitely.
injured.
That's yeah. What these two.
Yeah.
So share with me. So what platform did you begin first, and then what platform you kind of mainly focus on now with
I
your
started with
audience?
YouTube first
Oh, okay.
because it was the platform that allowed me to do like longer form things that I wanted to talk about. Because at that time Instagram was mainly like a photo sharing app. It wasn't the
Okay.
video app it's trying to be now. So I had like you can go back, not that I want to go back, but you can go back and watch those very old videos of myself.
You can
And
tell I didn't start Instagram until last year.
yeah, so
Mhm.
back then I did the longer form stuff, and it was just all this like pent up things that I wanted to share that I didn't have the chance to while I was, preparing for my recitals and doing courses and blah blah blah, and while I was an undergrad. So I got that stuff out, and then I decided to post a little bit more on Instagram because it was starting to be a bit more of a video app. And there were
Mhm.
more people kind of joining in into the platform and sharing their music. So I was like, oh, I feel a little bit more safe that I have a community that is kind of
Mhm.
there a little bit
Mhm.
while we're all exploring. So then I went onto Instagram. um there was like one very old video of mine that suddenly went viral, and then a lot more followers ended up finding me. So I was like,
Oh.
okay,
Mhm.
well, I have this number now, so I might as well make use of it, because I do want to
Of
share
course.
my experience and knowledge with as many people as I can. So I started with that, and then TikTok came into the playground very recently, and so I popped onto there too. And it's a very different type of social media community. It's a different type of beast, so it was another place for me to try out different things. Because it's so new, it's a lot more intimate and it's less curated. So I get to like test things in a more safe zone before I pop them over to the more curated Instagram. And
Oh,
then
really?
now
Okay.
from there, I'm using my YouTube as like so I like funnel everything through, and I funnel it into YouTube for just the longer form things that I want to share that I feel wouldn't really work on the Instagram platform for my community and layout just yet. Like I can't put my like hour long podcast on Instagram.
No.
It makes more sense to put it on YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So what did you do on TikTok and then what did you do? So I would guess your majority audience is on YouTube, I guess, at this
No,
point.
I think my majority that I communicate the most with and that are within my bubble is on Instagram. Just
Oh,
the
okay.
the intimacy of being able to talk with everybody and the immediacy of posting content. That's my main funnel. Anyone else who seems to enjoy my stuff more will end up on the YouTube. So in terms of TikTok, I haven't been active on it recently or for a little bit of some time, but I have about the same amount of followers that I do on Instagram, but
Wow.
they're a completely different audience with
Really?
different stuff on it. So at the time with TikTok having like trending reels and catchy things was really big there. So I thought, well, why don't since that audience is a little bit different and they have different ideas, why don't I play around and see what I can do? What skills can I develop? How can I take the content and stuff that I want to share and make it more accessible to the younger generation, because most of the younger generation is there now. So how can
Yeah.
I access that? And then if it's going well, develop that community, or try to cross the platforms and have them come onto my Instagram as well. And Instagram goes to TikTok. So I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to make use of it.
Trial and errors, we all try.
Yes. I mean, that's the creative process. You just try. See
Yeah.
what you find. Develop your skill, develop yourself, and enjoy the process.
So beautiful. And I love that. I mean, in my generation, a lot of how do we do that technology? It's so scary. But I saw you even on your YouTube, you shared a whole list of your gears and how did you come to this point? So when you first try, I would guess, it just maybe computer or the phone. But how did you get yourself to up to this level now?
um it was all the gear definitely was accumulated over many years, like since that 2014. um Back then, like, our phones and our cameras on our phones weren't that great, so I did have like a DSLR. I've always been interested in photography and capturing video just for like
Okay.
documenting to begin with. So it gave me a little bit more of an incentive to be like, yeah, I'll spend some money on this camera, you know, and then I'll put it to work on YouTube, you know. So it fulfilled a little bit of that kind of photographer side of me. But I think
Hmm.
the classical musician part of me comes out. You know, as a classical musician or a musician or an artist, you make something and then you're like, oh, can I find a better fingering? Can I
Hmm.
phrase this better? How can I interpret this better? How can I find a better voicing? How can I just do something, even if it's just a little tiny thing that can transform it so much? What can I do better? So, you know, you start making your videos and you're like, oh, the lighting's not that great. How can I make it better? Get some soft boxes. Lighting is great. And then you're like, oh, my background is kind of boring. So that's why I have this shelf here. I moved it. So, you know, you just want to get better
I
and better and
love
just make
it.
content better than you were the last video. And so you're like, I'm gonna need a mic. I'm gonna need a new webcam. I'm gonna need new things. And so you just grow as you make.
I'm just curious. The other day, my husband walked in my studio. How many mics do you have? Oh, only three. Is that not many? So
That's,
I'm
you know
curious, how
what?
many
You
mics do
need is
you have?
You know, when it comes to photography and video making, you like never ask them how much they have, because it's never enough. It's never
That's
enough.
true. That's true.
I have mm, 4 to 5 mics, and I
Uh-huh.
need more, or I want more, so to speak.
No, we just keep upgrading.
Yes, yes. That's how I like justify my spending. It's an
Me too.
upgrade.
Me too. I mean, my first mic, if you listen to me, my first mic is probably only twice softer of what you hear me now. And I
Mm.
just like, why I couldn't make it louder. And I never realized that was a mic. It took me a while to learn. I said, oh, okay, this one's on sale. Let me try this one. And I realized it's so much better. If I had known, I would have bought this one.
Yeah, and you know what? That's how you get it with 3 mics. And soon you're gonna have 4, because you're gonna be like, I need something better. You know, something that fits my needs.
It's like, oh, this person is so clear. What mic did this person use?
Yeah,
And what's the
exactly.
lighting? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yep. You know what? You're talking about documenting your own practice and figuring it. I found so even my young students, even their elementary school, actually we all have a hard time facing the camera. I remember one of my students, he's probably only 9 or 10. And I say, okay, when you go home, you can make a little video and then send to me. Just want to make sure when you go home, you can do the right thing.
Yes,
And
I
it took
understand
him
that.
many days. And I was like, but what was that difficult to make a camera, to make a video? And then she said, but I want to be perfect. I don't want to send you a video. It's not perfect. I said, no, I'm not looking for perfect performance. We just want to make sure you learn it right and then you can practice correctly, not just be able to do the right thing here with me and without me, you cannot do it.
Hmm.
but being able to back to be true to yourself, to face what you have. Most of the time it's easier, we just dream how beautiful we are instead of and then look at me, oh no, I didn't play well. It even for those young kids, it take a while for them to get used to.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, to be in front of video. Yeah.
It's terrifying.
So what you are willing to share and what to documenting those videos, to me, it's priceless. That
Thank you.
experience, what you are sharing, a lot of value, and that actually inspire those young people too. Yeah.
I think so too. That's why I do it. I mean, I get terrified too. Sometimes I will video something. I'm like, do I want to post something like this for longevity or in front of like X amount of people? Like, is this a smart idea? And, maybe if I was like Yuja and I'm touring the world, maybe it's not the smartest idea to post like a little oopsie. But
Hmm.
I'm not her. I'm a pianist, I'm an educator, and at the end of the day, like my vision is to make sure people don't go through what I had to go through. So in by posting things that are more transparent and more honest about the process, I hope that it would give other people the permission to also say, hey, perfection is great and all, but let's also be real and it's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm. So you want to share a little bit about your experience? Sounds like you went through few things in your struggle, some struggles in your learning your piano.
In like a very long story short, because it can like go on for a while. Um, when I was in university, I had like great teachers, but I think the teachers and I didn't necessarily bond in the way that or the just the way that they're communicating, the way that we're communicating, the way we work together, we just didn't like mesh. It's not that we had a bad relationship or anything, but especially when it comes to art and in your teacher, there's a certain type of connection that sometimes you need, and sometimes like teachers and the student just don't connect. There's nothing
Hmm.
you can do about
Hmm.
that, and
Hmm.
that's fine, totally fine.
I hear you.
Yeah, and I'm sure as a teacher, like for whatever reason I don't connect with you, and I'm sure there's someone else out there that can and be of service to you.
Mhm.
So I felt a lot of my studies and my journeys to because I wasn't getting the support that I felt I needed at the time from my teachers and my peers and stuff. I did a lot of the studying on my own.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I'm not to make it into a sob story or anything, but basically, I felt that majority of my studies I studied, like I researched on my own. I went to the library, I read so many technique books, I listened and watched and participated in as many master classes as I can, and just learned from other people, because I wasn't receiving the support I wanted. So, because I felt so unsupported and lonely, part of that emotional and mental tension ends up
Mhm.
going into your body too. So then the playing related injury occurred. Back at that time, to be an injured musician is kind of taboo. Like you don't tell people you're injured. So like you can't. I'm like I can't tell anyone that I'm injured, but I have this recital I need to perform for in like 2 months, but I can't really
Are you talking
play. So
about
I'm like,
me?
what do I do? Yeah, I'm sure there's many
I
musicians
know
who have also gone through.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and then even if you do tell someone, I mean, they're not a medical professional, so they're like,
Exactly.
don't practice. And I'm like, but I need to practice. And then you ask them, like, well, how should I practice? And they're like, and I'm like, okay, I will figure that out too. And then there wasn't as much as there is now, although I think it can improve. There's not as much medical support for musicians. There's tons of
Definitely.
support, like
Yes.
performance psychology and medicine for athletes, and the things for athletes are very much related to things that musicians go through you
Exactly.
know
Hmm.
so then I did see a medical professional for a musician that was very helpful, but then before I met that person I went to tons of medical professionals, and they didn't really know what to do, so they'll give you like the umbrella term of like tendonitis, thoracic outlet syndrome, rest, don't practice, or like the general advice is like, oh, that hurts, don't do it. I'm like, well, you can't tell me not to do my living
Yeah.
you
I
know
have a recital coming up. I need to perform.
yeah, it's like I
Exactly.
can you give me something a little more than just like ibuprofen and some like anti-inflammatory meds, because that'll work for half an hour, and then if I'm practicing with not knowing I have pain, it gets worse the next day. So all these things happen, and so just that struggle and the loneliness that came along with it obviously impacts everything. So I went on this like whole self-discovery journey and like how to practice better and all this other stuff, and I'm like, this sucks. And no one should ever have to go through this again. So this is what I've learned. Hopefully it helps you. Yeah.
I totally hear you. In
Mhm.
fact, I have talking about the tension and talking about injury. I suffered about like a 12 years. My
Ooh.
fingers can play really well. I just
Mhm.
cannot play trio.
The
People
trills
just
are
like,
hard.
what? I know. When I see the sign, I just like, oh my, there's a trio
And the
there.
moment you freak out, that's already gonna make it worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a recital coming. I'm performing. I cannot tell people I cannot play trio, right? I have to fake it to make it through. But who can support me with that? At that time, I mean, that's why it took so long for me to get out of that.
Mm-hmm. Because
And
it's not just like physically how to do it. You know, also at this point, I guess at that point for you, you also had to get the mental
mhm,
block away first before you can even do anything.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I just feel like, yeah, you can play it. There are people, they even had tendonitis. They have no idea they are having so much tension in their hand. Even they look at the video, oh, my hand looks stiff. That guess what? You gotta find out why it's stiff.
And then you can change it and it's going to be so much easier
Exactly.
and your personal expression comes out so much more easily. Like, it's like magic.
It is. That's how my quest begins. Once you can unlock those tension, you start to feel free, lose that control, and that connect to your self-expression. And that's the
Absolutely.
beauty of classical music. I mean, all kind of music too.
Yeah, yeah, all kinds of art, just the connection of the outer world
Exactly.
and your inner world, and it being the most unimpeded, clear version of it as possible.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I
me
love it.
too.
Yeah. So before I let you go, so what would you look what would you look forward for the next generation? I mean, we are all helping people to learn. What be your vision to in all you do, all you share?
My vision for the next generation, I would hope to have and keep everything that we currently have in terms of like the quality of the performing, the love that everybody has for the classical music and the things that they're doing. Um, what I would hope to have things that change is when musicians step into the practice room or in their lesson room, or when educators do the same thing, that the nurturing environment is safe for both the educator and for the student, um, in the sense that, how should I put it? I mean, it's safe in all the ways, but safe to also explore the mental and the emotional aspects that come along with making art. That's not to say that I think the student or the teacher should become a therapist, because you got to get trained for that too. But
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have that environment where the artist and the educator feel safe enough to talk about some of those things, and at least to be able to validate and recognize and acknowledge some of the difficulties that are going on, because honestly, it's usually those blockages that keeps the student from being unable to practice. You know, sometimes with some of my students, like the moment they enter the door, I'm like, oh, by the way they walk or by the way they just said hello or something, I'm like, they're having a bad day. And unless we talk about what happened on their math test, that's why they're having a bad day, we're not going to be able to learn and approach music in that transparent, honest way. So sometimes you just have to, do a little bit of that, ask them like what's going on, because like you said before, music is part of your life and life is also part of your music. And sometimes they just kind of cross a little bit, so you have to touch upon those topics. So topics like that, and I hope that also the vulnerability and the transparency for people to talk about performance related injuries to be much more well received and supported. That'll be a whole progress, I'm sure, but it's a lot better already. And I'm hoping, at least in the post-secondary educations for those who are very serious about the music industry, and wanting to perform, to have that support in the performance psychology and medicine, but also how to have a career in the modern world. Because you can't just practice in your practice room for 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
and be like, oh, I'll go to competition, someone will find me, and then I'll be famous. Like, no, I'm sorry, that does not for
That's not
most people. It
happening.
doesn't work that way. But why don't we equip you with tools and have a little bit of that business mind to help your artist mind? So you know how to do a website, you know how to do social media, you know how to do your taxes, you know how to have a studio policy if you're going to become an educator or something, but just to be well equipped to exist in the world that is outside the conservatoire life. So that's my very long-winded answer.
No, I love it because
Thank you.
that gives the music learning become a whole body experience.
Yeah.
It's not just in one field. This is classical music and nothing. It's so isolated. Now it become to part of the life,
Hmm.
and that actually give me. I mean, I will smile and I look at that and say, yeah, there's a hope. No, there's a hope of our classical music, of music making. People think, oh no, classical music is dying, music, but we all need something to connect to our inside.
Hmm.
And music definitely it's a blessing, it's a beautiful gift from our creator. It's a beautiful medium to help connect that. But our way of learning kind of isolated that. And I'm so happy you kind of you share your experience to bring people that music is beautiful, life is beautiful.
Yeah.
I
And
love it.
then let's have them both be beautiful and share it.
Exactly. To be human being instead of I'm just a pianist on
Yeah.
stage. Yeah.
Yeah, and to attach your identity to just one thing is like not healthy. So,
Mm-hmm.
have an identity outside that too, because then you can bring that back into your music. It just feeds everything.
So inspiring. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your insights and with all your
Thank you
content.
for having
By
this
the way,
conversation. Yes?
look at what's this. See, I didn't know this book.
Yes! Oh, I'm so
See
happy
how
for
much you
you.
inspire me too.
It's such a great book, and like you can
I know.
definitely apply that stuff into your teaching to have it leak through into your students too. So I'm so excited for you.
I know. When I look at your post, I don't know that book. Let me get that book. I want to read it. But thank you so much for all your sharing. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for opening up this space so that we can both
Thank
share
you.
as well.
Yeah.
And I hope we stay connected and we
Yeah,
can
we will.
collaborate more.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. All right.